Sorry about that. I was just too anxious to get started. It's 9 o'clock. We'll get started. Good morning. My name is John Von Paris, and I am the chairman of the MDTA Finance and Administration Committee. I hereby call the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order at 9 a.m. In accordance with live streaming law, this meeting is being conducted via video conference and is being live streamed on the MDTA Finance Committee webpage. All members will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. To minimize background noise during the call, I would ask that everyone on the line please mute your phones except when speaking. I ask that those who are presenting or answering a question to please turn your video and audio on when speaking. When you're done, please turn your video off and put your audio on mute. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered in advance of this meeting, this morning's meeting. At this time, we will begin with agenda item number 1, the approval of the minutes from May 9th, 2024. Does everybody have a copy? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Member.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Member Rosen.
Ardinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much, members. We'll move to item number 2, contract number TE 00210910 CTI Traffic Control Maintenance. And we have Richard, you're here to present this morning. Okay, Chantel, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. If you don't mind, can we move on to the next agenda item?
Sure, we
Can you
certainly
circle
can
back?
do that.
Thank
We'll
you.
come back. Okay, we will hold off on the second item. We'll come back to that as requested. Move to item number 3. Fiscal year 2024 budget amendment, approval of a budget amendment to the operating budget. Jeffrey Brown is here. Morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning, everybody. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Brown, Budget Director for the MDTA, and I'm here today to present a request for approval of amendment to increase the fiscal 2024 operating budget. The increase is $60 million, and the new operating budget will be $460.1 million. Per the trust agreement, we can amend the budget at any time during the current fiscal year. As just mentioned, the request is for $60 million, which is 15% above the current fiscal year 2024 budget. As a result of the Key Bridge collapse, the state of Maryland has received $60 million in initial emergency relief funding to support debris and salvage removal cleanup efforts. This amendment requests the additional fundings in accordance with the provided federal funds. After this amendment, the MDTA will remain in compliance with its financial goals and legal standards at fiscal year end. Essentially, the analysis goes through basically what I just iterated there, which is the $60 million increase to the fiscal year 2024 budget. Be happy to take any questions at this time.
Member Ardinger?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand. So basically, it nets out to zero, the change.
Yeah, we're correct. We're getting funding for this amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for further consideration?
Member Ardinger, also move.
Okay,
Second.
thank you.
Member Carroll.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. We will, Jeffrey is still up, so we'll move to agenda item number 4. Fiscal year 2025 final operating budget approval of the final operating budget for fiscal year 20, approval of fiscal year 2025.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. Yep. So again, I am here to request a recommendation of approval to the board for the fiscal 2025 operating budget. The proposed operating budget is $434.1 million, which represents a $13.4 million or 3.2% increase versus the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget. The key drivers associated with this change are mandated personnel expenses, the increased collectively bargained police patrol vehicle purchases, some higher insurance costs due to market pressures and the Key Bridge collapse, and some additional management study activities. These costs are partially offset by reduced credit card fees. Moving into detailed analysis, typically we break down these changes between mandated and discretionary changes. For the mandated changes, which are typically personnel, these changes increase the budget by $6.8 million. Moving into more detail, what's driving these costs is a salary adjustment increases total $3.8 million, which was the result of a longevity step, which increased the budget by $1.3 million, and a salary review adjustment, which increased the budget by $1.1 million, a civilian COLA of 3%, which increased the budget $1 million, and an annualization of the compression salary adjustments, which increased the budget $0.4 million. As a result of these changes, typically you do have some fringe changes that come along with that. Employees and retirees' health insurance costs increased $1.9 million. Pension costs increased $0.8 million, Social Security $0.3 million, and the law enforcement pension system actually decreased by $0.2 million. All other changes resulted in a $0.2 million increase. Moving on to discretionary spending, the additional discretionary spending were due to vehicle purchases, as mentioned above, which increased the budget by $5.7 million, which again was primarily due to the collectively bargained police patrol vehicles. Insurance increased, as mentioned above, $1.9 million, and that's based on the fiscal 2024 actuals, which result from market pressures and an estimated increase in premiums following the Key Bridge collapse. Management studies and consultants increased $1.3 million, primarily to operations and maintenance consultants and some bikeways, pedestrian walkway studies. Vehicle gas and repair increased $0.5 million. Typically, that comes along with the increased vehicle purchases. Engineers had a small increase of $0.2 million due to increased activity along things like historic environmental reviews and things of that nature. Embedded in this as well was a contractual employee step increase, but that totaled less than $0.1 million. All other increases across various sub-objects were a total of $0.2 million. Moving on to discretionary reductions, the total reductions were $3.2 million. The key drivers of this was, as mentioned above, credit card fees, which declined by $1.8 million. This reduction is a result of expected or anticipated savings associated with lower credit card processing rates. This will occur due to the implementation of enhanced credit and debit card transaction data collection. This collection will reduce the risk of fraud and reduce the fees. Building repairs and maintenance decreased $0.6 million due to lower contracting costs, and also we are aligning the budget with recent activity. Equipment repairs and maintenance declined $0.3 million due to reduced repair costs associated with newer equipment. There's a small decrease in advertising of $0.2 million, and all other decreases across various objects totaled $0.3 million. And moving down, you can see the actual budgeted headcount has not changed year over year. And we actually provide some additional graphical displays of essentially what I just went through in detail. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions? Member Artinger?
Sorry, it's me again. Just a question about the increase in the insurance specifically related to the collapse of the bridge.
Right.
Determining that increase, what resources were used, or how was that determined, that estimate?
That I'm relying upon, some detail from the RC manager who's involved in that. I'd have to kind of go back and see the exact detail of what was, what the process was. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I would have to go back to that. But unless Chantel has some additional information. You're on mute, Chantel.
Thank you. Struggling with mute today. So yes, the individual that's essentially in charge of insurance here at the authority did reach out to the state treasurer's office to get some guidance on what the likely increase would be. Again, this is, we'll know more in the fall when we see the actual sort of premium come in. But this is based on the best available information that we have at this time.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Member Rosen, did you have a question?
Member Ottinger asked my question. Thank you.
Great. Well, that was a very good question. Any other questions for Jeffrey? Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve this item as to advance this item to the full board for approval?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Member Carroll, second.
Carol. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
members. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. We will move on to item number 5, draft fiscal year 2025 through 2030 Consolidated Transportation Program, includes project additions and changes. Jeannie Marriott. Good morning, Jeannie.
Good morning. I'm Jeannie Marriott, the Capital Program Manager, and I'm here to ask for your recommendation for approval of the proposed draft 25 to 30 CTP. The draft CTP was recommended for approval by the Capital Committee on June 6th and will be presented to the full MDTA board for final approval on June 28th. The 6-year fiscal year 25 to 30 budget in the proposed CTP is $5.1 billion. The proposed CTP reflects a net increase in the 6-year budget of $2 billion. Now, if you return to attachment 1, we'll go through how we arrived at that $2 billion increase. We're going to be looking primarily at the dollar amounts that are in the total 2025 to 2030 column. In line 1 is the replacement of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. That increased our budget by $1.7 billion. There was a $4.7 billion increase in the Nice Middleton Bridge. And that's just cash flows. That's not a change in the cost of the project. And the same thing for the ETL Northern Extension in line 3. Excuse me, $64.1 million increase. And then the remainder of the CTP, not including the reserves, was a $132.2 million increase. The allocated and unallocated reserves, $101.9 million increase. And then skipping over to 7, which is the total, that brings us to our $2 billion increase for the 6 years. If you look over to the first column, the 2024 column, you'll see that we had predicted that we were going to spend $563 million in fiscal year 24, but now it looks like we're going to be spending $434 million. So there's a $128.5 million underspending, which has been rolled over into the 6-year budget. Now we go on to attachment number 2. This shows the projects with cash flow or budget changes. And in the fiscal year 25 to 30 budget change column, see that there were 14 new projects added for $1.7 billion. Then there were 5 projects modified to reflect bids received, 1 project increased in cost and 4 projects decreased in cost for a total increase of 6 million in that 6-year period. You see that in the total estimated cost change, it's a reduction of 7.8 million. That gives you a better picture of how, when we looked at the bids, it was less than what we had estimated. And then there were 3 projects modified to add the construction phase. That's a total of $33.1 million transferred from the reserves as design reached 60% and cost estimates were developed on fully developed scopes. And if we go to the next page, there were 15 projects completed or deleted, 14 projects completed, and the Key Bridge redecking project was canceled for a net $6.3 million decrease in the 25 to 30 period. And then at the bottom of page 2 and all of the information on page 3 and ending on page 4 are 61 active projects that were modified due to cost changes and cash flow adjustments for a net increase of $142.5 million. And then we see the reserves increased by $101.9 million. And then in the last section is a summary of the project and budget reserve changes that brings us back to the $2 billion increase that you saw on attachment number 1. Then attachment number 3 is a pie chart showing the breakdown of the $5.1 billion by facility. And of course, the largest slice at $1.9 billion is the Key Bridge. And then Kennedy Highway, with work remaining for the northern extension, is 20% of the budget for the 6-year period. And if we go to the 4th attachment, what are the categories of projects? As expected, bridge replacements are the biggest slice of the $2 billion. About the $5 million, which is 39% of the 6-year CTP. And then structures preservation, which are typically very expensive, came in second. And I'm asking for your recommendation for approval, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
Sure, we'll have some questions here. Any members? Any questions for any members? From any members? No. Okay. Just surprised me on the Kennedy Highway. I thought that number would be lower, but it's not. So it's a big project.
Well, and that on that facility chart, it also includes. Are you talking about the pie chart?
Yes.
Okay. That also includes every other project that's on the Kennedy Highway facility.
Okay.
So that's not just the extension, but that is the biggest part of it.
All right. Well, Jeannie, thank you as always, and we appreciate it. Did a great job explaining everything here. And I guess we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you very much.
Are you going to?
We're going to approve it. I'm
Are you
sorry.
going to recommend it for approval?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm having
Please.
a tough day.
Move to
Sorry,
approve,
and
Member
I
Carroll.
had it on mute for a while. I'll tell you, just rough. I've been up very early today and have a lot going on, so I apologize. But this is my focus right now. I apologize, members. I'll try to get on board here a little bit better. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve this or advance this item to the full board for further consideration?
So moved, Member Carroll.
Thank you, Member Carroll. Is there a second?
Member Artinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Artinger. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Okay. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 6, financial forecast, approval of the financial forecast, and Chantel Green is here to present. Hi, Chantel.
Hi, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah.
For the record, I am Chantel Green, the Director of Finance here at the Authority, and I am here to present the fiscal year 2024 to 2030 financial forecast for your approval. In a moment, I'll discuss the primary differences between the current forecast and the forecast that was presented to you in November of 2023. However, before doing so, I'd like to direct your attention to the key takeaways on page 39 of your PDF materials. You'll note that through fiscal year 2027, the Authority remains in compliance with its financial goals and legal standards. This is 1 year shorter than the November forecast, which assumed debt service coverage compliance through fiscal year 2028. Despite the loss of the FSK Bridge, the Authority has sufficient cash flow and capital reserves in fiscal year 2025 to support additional expenses associated with the FSK Bridge replacement without external support. Based on current forecast estimates, beginning in fiscal year 2028, a system-wide toll increase will be necessary to maintain 2 times debt service coverage throughout the remainder of the forecast period. The next page outlines the primary differences between the current forecast and the most recently approved forecast. Regarding toll revenues, the forecast reflects a $153 million decline in toll revenues throughout the fiscal year 2024 through 2030 forecast period. The majority of the reduction is the result of reduced revenue associated with the closure of the Key Bridge. The forecast assumes a 40% recapture rate for passenger and commercial vehicles driving from the FSK facility to the FMT and BHT facilities, diverting from the FSK facility to the FMT and BHT facilities, resulting in a $141 million reduction in toll revenue during the 4-year closure of the Key Bridge. Additionally, albeit a smaller reduction, toll revenues were also reduced by $4 million during the forecast period following the re-benchmarking of the harbor crossing facilities based on fiscal year 2024 actuals through February. For your reference, a copy of the updated forecast can be found in attachment 2 of your materials. Next, operating budget expenses increased by $128 million throughout the forecast period. A significant portion of the increase is due to the one-time $60 million fiscal year 2024 budget amendment for debris and salvage removal. After adjusting for the budget amendment, operating budget expenses increased by $68 million over the forecast period, mostly due to personnel costs, collectively bargained for police vehicles, management studies, and property insurance costs, most of which are compounded in future years. Capital budget expenses increased by approximately $2 billion, mostly due to the replacement of the FSK Bridge. Additionally, bond issuances and debt service costs increased by $249 million and $49 million respectively over the forecast period. This is due to lower toll revenues coupled with higher anticipated operating and capital budget costs that reduce the amount of pay-go or cash funding available for capital spending. The forecast also reflects the receipt of $60 million in initial federal emergency relief funding that will be fully reimbursed with insurance proceeds. Of the remaining amount of insurance proceeds, which is $290 million, it is possible that $46 million will be retained by the Authority for business interruption at the FSK and that the remaining $244 million will be used on eligible federally reimbursable FSK bridge replacement costs. The forecast assumes that through fiscal year 2025, we'll spend down our remaining insurance proceeds before we start drawing federal funds. And that beginning in fiscal year 2026, it is assumed that the Authority will be reimbursed by the federal government for eligible project costs at a 90% federal, 10% Authority split, with a 1-year lag from the time the costs are incurred until the Authority is reimbursed. Should Congress act within the next few months to allow for 100% federal funding, as requested by the Maryland delegation and the Biden administration, naturally the Authority's assumptions will be adjusted during the fall presentation of the financial forecast for your approval. Based on current forecast estimates, beginning in fiscal year 2028, again, a system-wide total increase will be necessary to maintain 2 times debt service coverage throughout the remainder of the forecast period. Lastly, because of all of the complexities associated with the FSK Bridge and federal funding, you should note that we're planning to make some small additional refinements or tweaks to the forecast. As such, there will likely be some minor differences between the current forecast that's presented to you today and the forecast that's presented to the board later this month for approval. And with that, those are the major changes reflected in the forecast, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Chantel. Are there any questions?
I do have a question, member on Paris. So, Chantel, related to the insurance splits, so we had 350 million, and then we figured out, or I guess we're estimating that 46 million was for the business interruption. How did we break that down, since our business interruption costs are higher per the prior note in here? I'm just curious how we break this down, the 350 down.
Okay, sure. So in terms of the $350 million, we get $350 million in insurance proceeds. The first $60 million will have to be used to reimburse the federal government for the $60 million in federal funding. When you receive insurance proceeds and things of that nature, you're required to reimburse the federal government if they give you funds. You know, you can't essentially like double dip. And so because of that, it just simply, quite frankly, just didn't make sense to, draw the funds, reimburse the federal government, draw the funds, reimburse the federal government. So it's our intent to spend down the full amount of the insurance proceeds before beginning to draw on the federal funds. I see Deb hopped on. Deb, did you want to say something more?
I was going to let you finish. And the only thing I was going to add is that the insurance policy had a 18-month cap on business interruption. So the 46 million is 18 months. And that's the difference. Whereas the 141 is over 4 years.
Okay, so that answers, so that's I want to understand the delta. So it's 18 months versus 4 years, and that makes sense. And then when we're talking about the potential for the federal funding, and whether it's 90, 10, or 100%, that's for the capital improvements. That's not for lost revenue, right? Or is it?
The 100% is for the capital improvements, but if it's a lot of work is being done for the 100%, and if, or let's say when that happens, it's very likely that we would forego the business interruption portion of that. So for right now, for conservative reasons in our forecast, we have to assume the 90-10 split, which if it was the 90-10 split, then the assumption is we would retain the business interruption. And I'm not sure if Bruce has anything else he wants to add. So, for right now, we let the governor's office, the secretary, working with the Maryland delegation, work out those details.
I understand that. So basically, in a perfect world, there's 100%, which offsets the cost of rebuilding the bridge and all the cleanup associated with it, and we're going to forego the lost revenue, which basically is a hit to our budget, and that's in effect our costs from the loss of the bridge, aside from other things. Okay,
That's right.
Great, thank you.
Deb, I was going to jump in, but there's no need. You answered everything. So.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Any other questions?
Member Oranger.
Just looking at this 1 year lag from being reimbursed by the federal government, any concerns there from our budget perspective?
I think it doesn't change the timing of events for us. And we have to make a reasonable assumption. So we don't have any better information to assume that the reimbursement would be sooner or later. So we've just,
Okay.
it was our internal judgment as to whether or not 12 months was reasonable. But if we would have made
Okay.
a different assumption, it wouldn't have materially changed the forecast.
All right, but even, yes, thank you, I understand. So even with the 12-year lag, though, from a financial perspective, we feel that we're okay with that? Because it could potentially be a lot of money that needs to be fronted until we receive that reimbursement.
It's not, from our perspective, it's not a matter of course, we would be better financially if reimbursement was within 30 days. But for the forecast purposes, we've got to make assumptions that are achievable. And sometimes we have to layer in the conservative nature, conservative with 100% capital budget, conservative that the federal funds is only 90-10. So the 12 months is a reasonable assumption. It's certainly our hope that we're being overly conservative. But for financial planning, we can't make assumptions that err on the side of more optimistic.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Carroll?
Just as a fast follow to Member Ardinger's question, at least as I heard it, Deb, I think I'm asking if, and I apologize if you stated affirmatively, are we in a position to front that delta for whatever period of time we'd have to carry that? Does that create financial peril in any way?
It results in us selling bonds sooner than we would otherwise sell them, not to a material extent. Okay. And material's relative because we're talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars. So we sell bonds sooner. Now, we don't need to sell bonds until fiscal year 26, the very beginning of 26. So we have sufficient cash flow to carry us for a year. But then when we are waiting for a 12-month, assuming a 12-month reimbursement, it does result in us selling bonds sooner than we would otherwise do so.
Thank you for that, Deb.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. So we will, is there a motion to advance this item to the full board for further consideration?
So moved. Member Rosen.
Okay, thank you, Member Rosen. Is there a second?
Member Ardinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ardinger. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries. Thank you, members.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just kind of publicly thank the finance and capital teams for all the work that went into that document and that update. That was an incredible amount of work and scenarios that they were asked to run, both by myself and the chairman, just to make sure we had the best information and tested everything so that Deb could provide those assurances to you that she did in your question. So I just want to thank Deb and Chantel and the whole team for all the work that's gone into that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Bruce. I agree with you 100%. Lot of effort for sure from many talented people. So thank you all for the extra effort and all that it took to get this together. Thank you for bringing that up, Bruce. Okay, we will move on to the last, except we're going to come back eventually to item number 2. but we will go on with the item number 7, an update on the revenue sufficiency. Chantel.
Thank you. The authority's board operating policy requires a biannual review of revenue sufficiency to determine if the current rate and fee levels are appropriate based on levels of expected spending. The biannual review of revenue sufficiency is essentially a companion item to the financial forecast. The financial forecast that was just presented shows that the authority's current toll rates, as well as fees and discounts, provide enough revenue through fiscal year 2027 to meet forecasted spending and all legal and policy requirements. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions at all on this? Okay, thank you very much, Chantel. Deb?
Member Von Paris, for the second item, Jamal Turner has joined the conversation from procurement, and he can present that item for us.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Jamal Turner. I'm the procurement manager for IT commodities for our illustrious agency. I am seeking to present a award for a sole source contract with CTI Control Technologies for the provision of software maintenance service, technical support, quarterly preventative maintenance, and miscellaneous service for the on-time traffic control system currently utilized at our William Preston Lane Memorial Bridge. The total value of this contract is estimated to be $527,685.40 for the term of 5 years. As the MDTA requires stable and usable lane use signals to ensure traffic control and alleviate traffic delays during peak hours and peak seasons at the William Preston Lane Bay Bridge, the primary purpose of this system is to manage the signal hits on that bridge. However, the MDTA also uses on-time software to view videos of the lanes from the closed caption TV cameras, control the lane use signals, enhance lane use signals, and dynamic message signs, two-way flashes, illuminated pavement markers, and the gates at the William Preston Lane Bay Bridge. The contract, if approved at the July 3rd BPW, which we are aiming for, it will continue the needed software maintenance services, including reconfiguring the software as needed, testing the software quarterly based on Microsoft operating system patches, and performing any necessary software upgrades to the system software. This plan is to include 24-hour, 7 days a week support through a dedicated CTI technical support number and email address. That is it for my presentation. I'll open the floor to any questions in regards.
Thank you, Jamal. Appreciate it. Are there any questions from any members?
Jamal, just a question. So I think you referenced 527,000. We have 490,362.
Okay. Okay, so that was based. My number was based on the engineer's estimate. I will the 437, I believe, is the actual number that came in when we received the quote from CTI.
Okay, so 490 is the accurate number?
That is correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're saying the engineer's estimate, so it is or is not 479,714?
The engineer's estimate was 527,000.
It was.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so we actually came in under. Okay. All right. Just for point of record for the board meeting, we should update the schedule for the minute.
I agree with that. So just so we're clear on the number here, we have 493.62 is the number.
Are you posing that question to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I do have a question. Whenever there's a sole source type of a contract, sometimes with technology, it's challenging because once you purchase the technology and then you're kind of caught in that a little bit. Not caught in that, but it's just a little bit more difficult, I think, to when it comes to the competitiveness of it. And I guess that was done up front. But is this are we part of like a piggyback on like another one of the national programs with or anything like that through any of our affiliations?
No, as far as if this was done through our ICPA or if there's a potential at this juncture, no. You have your NASPO, your Omnias, your Sourcewells. Unfortunately, where we are at this point, we're already in the midst of infrastructure. So to look to source any other will cause a widespread infrastructure change, which will be a burden on our resources at the moment. So that's why we're in a sole source situation. To continuance of license, everything is licensed, everything's subscription as we're going forth into that SaaS for technology, platform. So at this moment, it would be a huge infrastructure change to bring anybody else into the game, if that answers your question.
Okay. I guess this is all taken into consideration when we're securing or receiving bids in the future, all of that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for answering those questions for me. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Is there a motion to advance this to the full board for approval? Second.
Member Artinger, I'll move.
Second, Member Carroll.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? This motion carries. Thank you very much. Jamal, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we have covered everything on the agenda. I do thank everybody who prepared the information today. Again, as Bruce said, great effort, and we get to the point where it's time to adjourn. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Member Artinger, also move.
Thank you. Is there a
Second,
second?
Member Carroll.
Okay. A motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.